Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a semi-new podcast in which we discuss Denver sporting news. We break down the games and we talk about what's to come for the teams we love, all through the lens of a bettor. This is the Denver Dollar, and I'm your host, Daniel Shalansky. Without further ado, let's get to it. The date today is April 14th, 2021. The Nuggets have a home game matchup against the Miami Heat. Before we talk about the game, let's just say prayers out to Jamal Murray, even though I'm not necessarily the praying type. I'm hoping that he can return to 100% strength before the playoffs of next season. If it's an average ACL injury with no setbacks, we would see him right around the end of the All-Star break of next year. A lot of people have been comparing this injury to that of Derrick Rose's, which obviously hobbled him and kind of made him way less effective throughout the course of his career. And at this point, he's the shell of the player that he was. Unfortunately, I don't see it quite as much of a Derrick Rose type of injury, sitting for my armchair doctor. But I will say that medical technology has advanced so much even since then. That was just like a little bit less than 10 years ago. But in addition to that, Colorado is considered the number one knee surgery location in the world. A lot of people travel here for knee surgeries, and I think that's because of the high amount of injuries that occurred over the course of skiing and accidents that happen on the ski hill. I don't know if that makes a difference, though, because NBA players are already getting the top medical staff around the world, especially here in the U.S. They're getting the top medical attention when they're injured. So I'm just praying it can be like a Zach LaVine type of injury. Zach LaVine tore his ACL, and he's playing better now, just a couple years later, than he has throughout the course of his career. He hasn't lost a step. He's equally as athletic. He still dunks the ball like crazy, and he's progressed his game in so many other ways. I'm really hoping that Jamal Murray's injury won't hinder his, career effectiveness, and that he can be back to 100% of what he was, because he was our second most important player, and he was absolutely key to a Nuggets playoff run. So things are looking a little bit bleak, especially for this season, even for next season, even after that. Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr., their contracts expire at the end of the 2022 season, and if we keep both of them, if we're able to keep both of them, we're going to have to say goodbye to some of our depth unless the NBA signs that TV deal, which would increase the salary cap. So things are kind of bleak, and as a Nuggets fan, my heart absolutely dropped when I saw Jamal kind of writhing on the floor. You could literally hear his shouts from the broadcast. They really need to pan away or talk about something else when something like that's going on. It's kind of an annoying way to get views, is just zooming in on the player in complete agony, literally writhing on the floor and yelling, completely yelling in pain. But that's all an aside. Let's talk about the game tonight. So injuries for the game, of course, there will not be any Jamal Murray. He has an ACL injury. We said on the show a few nights ago when they were playing the Golden State Warriors that Jamal Murray was considered day to day and that we shouldn't expect to see him. He wasn't on the betting card. The fact that he played his full normal minutes workload, even though he was cleared by the medical staff, the fact that he played his full minutes workload is a little bit horrendous. Obviously, they're asking for trouble, especially when it's an 8-point game and he's on the court with less than a minute left in an 8-point game. I don't know why he was out there, and then I don't know why Malone didn't pull all the starters after that. The fact that he kept Jokic in until the very end is just kind of, screaming for something bad. And I am not a Malone hater. A lot of Nuggets fans are Malone haters. I don't like his rotations all the time. This is an example of the worst rotation possible. I'm not a fan of his rotations all the time. Some people have been calling for his head. I do think he might be one of the best Nuggets coaches we've ever had. A lot of non-Nuggets fans would say George Karl. He did win the Coach of the Year. We also got bounced in the first round of the playoffs that season, and he didn't necessarily have the respect of his players. Andre Iguodala and him hated each other, and then Iggy left halfway through that playoff series against the Warriors when he was talking to them, potentially giving them some of our game plans. He joined them the next season. The rest is history. They went on to have a dynasty. I'm not a Malone hater. Sorry for that aside again. But I really do think it was atrocious how he was managing the players last night. So Jamal Murray played 2 nights ago. Shouldn't have played 2 nights ago. Should have at least been on a limited minutes. Shouldn't have been in when he was in. He has an ACL injury. He will miss the rest of the season and a good portion of the next season. That is the only Nuggets injury that is being reported as of now, fully healthy other than that. On the Heat side of the ball, Victor Oladipo will also be absent with a knee injury. He's considering surgery too. That's a player that's kind of similar to Derrick Rose that suffered an injury and has never quite been the same since. He's shown flashes of it, but he was a guy who really relied on his athleticism. So it's kind of ironic that the two guys on the injury report are two guys with knee injuries, Jamal Murray and Victor Oladipo, and here's to hoping that Jamal Murray's injury does not turn out to be like one of Victor Oladipo's several knee injuries. So there are only those two players. The Nuggets have lost their last two games. They were on an 8-win streak, and then they lost the last two. They're still 8 of 10 in the last 10 games, 3 of 5 in the last 5 games. The Heat are also 3 of 5 in the last 5 games. They've been wildly inconsistent as of late, though. They absolutely got slaughtered, I believe it was last night, against the Phoenix Suns, and they're playing in a back-to-back. So it's definitely a tough template for the Heat. That said, the Nuggets are missing Jamal Murray. They've lost their last two. They have no momentum as of right now, and it's hard to see them really rallying together for a win tonight. The Heat, again, they've only won 3 out of their last 5. They lost a tough one last night. Right before that, however, they had a beautiful win against the Portland Trailblazers when they were firing on all cylinders. So they've been kind of inconsistent as of late. I still like them in this game overall over the Denver Nuggets, as much as it pains me to say it. I would not be saying that if Jamal Murray were healthy. But, Coach Malone said after the game that the locker room was very down. It was pretty bleak in the locker room. I can't imagine that anyone is, particularly motivated to play basketball in the Denver Nuggets locker room as of right now. Of course, they still are going to be in the playoffs. Maybe they can get past the first round. I don't expect a deep playoff run without Murray, but we could potentially see Nikola Jokic turn into Wilt. But as of right now, they're definitely going to be bleak. I do see them dropping 3 in a row. So with that said, let's talk about the numbers in this game. The Nuggets are big favorites, which is kind of confusing to me. They're missing their second most important player, and for the reasons I just said, they lost 2 in a row, and their locker room is kind of bleak. They don't have a lot of intensity. They don't have a lot of passion towards basketball right now. Of course, that's me just assuming, but I can't imagine that they're very excited to play in their next game after, we can call it a tragedy after the tragedy that happened in the most recent game. But again, the Nuggets are big favorites. If you bet on them in the money line, they're at minus 195. The Heat are at plus 160. The spread in this game is 5 points in favor of the Nuggets. The Nuggets are minus 112. The Heat are minus 110 if you bet on them plus 5 spread. The over-under in this game is astonishingly low, and I can't imagine that the under hits. The over-under in this game is 210.5 points. The over is locked in at minus 112. The under is locked in at minus 109. I am not taking the over by itself. I'm going to take it in a parlay later, but I think that that's obscenely crazy that it's at 210.5. For reference, over the last 5 games for the Denver Nuggets, and only one of those games, by the way, has been with Jamal Murray. The Nuggets are scoring 111 points, and they're allowing 111 points. The Heat are allowing 106.6 points, and they're scoring 106 points. So even though those are relatively low, especially for the season-long totals between those both of those teams, the aggregate of all of those kind of points towards the fact that the over would still be likely to hit here, and I'm going to bet on the over in this game, 210.5 points. I'm not going to bet on the over by itself. I'm going to parlay it here with the Heat in the money line. I know it's risky again because the Heat are coming off of a back-to-back. They're big underdogs in this game. I don't think they should be nearly as big of underdogs as they are. They're coming off of a back-to-back. Jimmy Butler rolled his ankle in the previous game last night against the Phoenix Suns. He's not listed on the injury report. The injury reports are inconsistent. I kind of highlighted this 2 nights ago on the Golden State one about how I didn't expect Jamal Murray to play, but he still played. Again, I'm sorry to bring that back up, but yeah, the injury reports are really inconsistent, and Jimmy Butler probably should not play in this game, but he's not listed on the injury report. He's not listed on the betting card. In fact, no Heat players are listed on the betting card. But despite the fact that they lost in a game by 20 points, Jimmy Butler rolled his ankle, I still think they beat the Nuggets. I think I'm buying into the narrative that the Nuggets are going to be particularly glum and not necessarily leaning into wanting to play basketball at this point. So I do think that the Heat bet plus the over is pretty good, and at plus 380 I consider it like kind of 50-50 whether or not that happens. If the Heat win, I do think the over will hit, and what's especially crazy about that is it's plus 380. That's pretty much the best value you're going to find on any single bet tonight, other than maybe Aaron Gordon to get a double-double, which is a bet that is available, but I just think that's a stupid bet. Again, I'm sorry for kind of bubbling. Yeah, I do like that parlay plus 380, the Heat plus the over. I'm going to bet on the Nuggets to score first. I'm going to move my tip-off analysis all the way to the front of the show. It kind of makes more sense here, and then we'll start finishing the show off with our player props. So let's talk about why I think that the Nuggets are going to score first in this game. Nikola Jokic and Bam Adebayo have gone against each other a total of 3 times in their NBA careers. Nikola Jokic has won the tip-off 2 times. Bam Adebayo has won the tip-off 1 time against Nikola Jokic. Now, Jokic has a 2-inch wingspan advantage against Bam Adebayo, and Nikola Jokic is kind of hot on his tip-offs. He's 4 of 5 as of late. His only loss came to former teammate Mason Plumlee 5 games ago when they played against the Detroit Pistons, and Bam Adebayo is losing some winnable tip-offs. He's losing to he lost to Dean Wade of the Cavs, and he lost to Yusuf Nurkic of the Portland Trailblazers. Those are winnable, and I believe that Nikola Jokic has never gone against Dean Wade, to be fair, but against Nurkic, I do believe he has a positive record. Jokic is a 4 of 5 in his last 5. Bam Adebayo is 3 of 5, and Nikola Jokic holds the track record against Bam Adebayo, being 2 of 3 in those tip-offs. The Nuggets have better odds to score here first at minus 108 versus minus 118 for the Heat. I do think that the Nuggets win the tip-off. Again, on the season, we are 79% predicting who will win the tip-off, and usually that correlates to who will score first, as the team who wins the tip-off has every opportunity to score first. I'm going to bet on the Nuggets at minus 108 to score first. Now on to player props. Unfortunately, none of the Heat players are available. I think that's because even though Jimmy Butler is not on the injury report, he might not play in this game, and that means minutes are unpredictable around who's going to play on the Heat. Maybe some guys are going to rest because it's a back-to-back. Injury reports have freaking sucked this year, and again, I highlighted that 2 games ago. I was talking about how I bet on Reggie Jackson to hit the over in points because Marcus Morris Sr. and Paul George were listed as out when the Nuggets played against the Clippers. They were listed as out, not day-to-day, not probable, not anything else. I said out for the game against the Denver Nuggets. They both played. Obviously, Reggie Jackson's usage was way down. He didn't hit the points total that I thought he would if those 2 players were absent. I've been very frustrated as of late with injury reports. They're just not true. We just have to do our best to watch the games and assume who might miss time, because the injury reports honestly are very, very misleading. But because Jimmy Butler, even though he's not on the injury report, might be absent, none of the Heat players are available due to the fact that, again, minutes are going to be unpredictable. So that means we have 4 Nuggets players. We can discuss 4 player props. Those 4 players are Will Barton, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic. Those are the same 4 players that we've been discussing since Jamal Murray was out with his knee injury initially, and now he's going to be missing some extended time with his... it is a new knee injury because it is on the other leg, but again, it's kind of resulted from his other knee injury, potentially having to put too much stress on that other knee. Coach Malone called it a freak accident. I don't know if I'm so willing to lean into that, but yeah, it's going to be the same 4 players that we've been discussing as of late. I'm going to start with Will Barton. I'm going to take the over on his player special at 21.5 combined points, assists, and rebounds. In the last game, he only had 12 combined points, assists, and rebounds, but that really has lowered his totals over the past week and even over the past month. Over the past week, he's averaging 20.1, and that includes a 12-point performance, 12-point assist and rebound performance. Over the last 30 days, however, he's averaging 22.1. With Jamal Murray out, I expect him to have to burden a lot more of that playmaking alongside Nikola Jokic. He is more of an ISO guy, whereas Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray run that pick and roll. I think maybe Barton could assume some of that. And of course, we're going to be having Monte Morris and Facu Campazzo. One of the 2 will be in the starting lineup alongside those 4. I do not know which one, but those guys will primarily be utilizing the pick and roll. But I do see Barton's usage rate going up with Jamal Murray out, and even with Jamal Murray in, some of these games. But over the last 8 games, Will Barton has hit over 21.5 combined points, assists, and rebounds in 7 of those 8 games, and now Jamal Murray is definitely out. I'm going to take the over at minus 134. I'm going to take the over on Michael Porter Jr. points. Again, if you've been listening to the show for the past 2.5 weeks, I've been saying to do this bet every single time. And it keeps creeping up. So right now he's set at 19.5 points. Over the last 8 games, he's hit that in 6 out of the last 8 games. But just a week ago, it was all the way down to 16.5. Vegas is learning a little bit. They haven't learned all the way. They should really be around 22.5, maybe even 23.5 because of how he's been scoring as of late. But realistically, Vegas is making a creep up. About a week ago, it was around 16.5, and then he would have been 8 of 8 on these, past 8 games. So we've really only failed on one of these bets over the past 2.5 weeks. It was set at 18.5 points. He had 18 points. He only shot 1 of 3 from the 3-point line. He's been struggling immensely from the 3-point line, but he is still scoring in bunches. I expect his 3-point shooting to return back to the average, to regress to the mean, which means that I do think he's going to be scoring even more points than he did as of late, especially with Jamal Murray out. Expect his usage rate to go up. Now, Michael Porter Jr. had 24 points in the last game. The game before that, he had 23 points. That's 47 points over the past 2 games. And over the past 2 games, he was 2 of 19 from 3-point range. Imagine if he was hitting shots at a consistent clip, especially for a guy who shoots the 3-ball really well over his, short career. Imagine if he was hitting it at his normal clip, he'd be scoring around, 35 points a game. So I easily think the over on 19.5 points will hit, especially considering the fact that over the past week he's averaging 21.5. Over the past month he's averaging 21.3. The over has the same value as the under at minus 113. This is my favorite bet on the night. I'm taking the over on Michael Porter Jr. points. Now here's a bet that I do like, except for I like the value elsewhere a little bit more. That is Michael Porter Jr. rebounds, the over on that. He's set at 8.5 rebounds here. The over odds are minus 134. Now, 7 out of the last 9 games, he's gotten at least 8.5 rebounds, which is huge. Huge for the guy. So, I do like that bet a lot. The reason that I'm not so willing to take it is because we know that Michael Porter Jr. is going to get at least double-digit points. That is a given. It's very easy. I don't know how many games in his career he's had less than 10 points, but I'm sure it's very minimal, especially when he is, really a focal point of our offense now, which he wasn't at the beginning, or which he wasn't during the course of last year. During the playoffs, he was a little bit, but now he's a focal point of the offense. I expect him to be getting at least 10 points on a fairly consistent basis, and by fairly consistent, I mean each and every single game. So here, for him to exceed the over on rebounds at 8.5, he needs to secure at least 9 rebounds. For a double-double, he just needs 1 more rebound than that, and the odds increase drastically from minus 134 to plus 150. And the difference really is only 1 more secured rebound for Michael Porter Jr. So that's the only reason I'm holding off on this rebound over, is because I think there is better value elsewhere, but you can absolutely take it if you want. Again, he's had 9 rebounds, at least 8.5 rebounds in 7 out of the last 9 games. That'll do it for Michael Porter Jr. Let's talk about Aaron Gordon. There's one bet for him. I've been kind of preaching this one as of late, and I'm going to continue preaching it. I'm taking the under on his points at 12.5. He's played 9 games so far with the Denver Nuggets, and in 2 of those games, he has reached more than 12.5 points. The under is locked in at minus 113. It's the same value as the over. And again, in 2 out of his 9 games with the Denver Nuggets, has he exceeded the over on this mark. I'm going to take the under, and I'm going to take the under confidently. He's one of the guys that I don't see his usage rate increasing without Jamal Murray. He is not really such a pick and roll ball handler, so I don't think that he'll be running, I don't think his usage rate will go up with the absence of Jamal Murray. Somebody whose usage rate is already immensely high, and I do see it going up, is the GOAT himself, Nikola Jokic. I'm going to take the over on his points at 24.5. Now, in 4 out of the last 5 games, he's exceeded more than 24.5 points, and without Jamal Murray for certain, I expect him to have to burden a lot of the load. He's the MVP. He's right now playing the best in the league. He has a higher PER than anyone except for prime Michael Jordan and prime LeBron James. I do think that he's going to have to burden a lot of the load. I do think Coach Michael Malone has probably talked to him about that, and I'm willing to bet that he has more than 24.5 points. I'm also going to bet that he has more than 44.5 combined points, assists, and rebounds. Again, locked in at minus 113. They're both locked in at minus 113. Without Jamal Murray, he's going to have to do all the playmaking, not just the scoring, and that means passing and rebounding. Jamal Murray never really stole rebounds from him. I expect him to still get a lot of rebounds in this game, but, just buying into the narrative that I previously mentioned, he's going to have to do a lot more on the offensive end of the court, including assists, scoring, I'm going to take the over on combined points, assists, and rebounds at 44.5. The over is minus 113. Now, there are 2 bets that I like here. I'm going to take Michael Porter Jr. to get a double-double. Now, this is the reason why I'm kind of hesitant to bet on the over for Michael Porter Jr. rebounds, and that is because I like the value here so much more. Now, in 6 out of the last 9 games, that's a 67% hit rate, he has secured at least 10 rebounds for a double-double. At plus 150, considering the fact that over the last 9 games he has a 67% hit rate, I think the value is too good to pass up on there. I'm taking Michael Porter Jr. to get a double-double. 2 nights ago, he did not get a double-double. He had 9 rebounds. That was the only game with 9 rebounds over this span. He's exceedingly close to getting a double-double every single time he doesn't. At plus 150, I think that is too good a value to pass up on. Now, Nikola Jokic, I said you should not bet on him to get a double-double 2 nights ago. He still got one, but the reason I said you shouldn't is because the value was really bad last game. It was at minus 770. The value is still not great here, but it's better than we've seen in the past. For Nikola Jokic to get a double-double, it's locked in at minus 500. If you were to put $100 down every single night the Nuggets play at these exact odds, you would win $20 each night. He has had 48 double-doubles, which means you would have $960 that you won. He has not gotten a double-double in 6 games. You would be up $360 if you were to put $100 down every single night. The odds still aren't as good as we've seen in the past, but it is still absolutely worth it. So I'm going to say that you should bet $100 or however much money you want to bet that Nikola Jokic gets a double-double in this game. Again, he's getting a double-double at an 89% hit rate. That is way better than any player in the league. Fun fact, if this game weren't a 72-game season, if it were an 82-game season, which is unfortunate that it is a 72-game season for a few reasons. First of all, completely unrelated to the point I'm about to make, is that there is a lot of scrunching the games together. The Nuggets have played 6 games in the last 9 days as of when they played the Golden State Warriors, and I know Jamal Murray was resting, but perhaps that's why we've seen such a large uptick in injuries this NBA season, is because so many games are compressed. In no shape or form should any team play 6 games in 9 days. That's pretty atrocious from Adam Silver. I know the players did agree to it, but they knew the players would agree to it because otherwise they would not be making their full amount of money. Anyway, another bad thing about the shortened season, the 72-game season, is that Nikola Jokic is on pace to break the single-season double-double record in NBA history, but it's a 72-game season. There are going to be 10 less games than there would be in any other season, so he's not on pace in that regard. In fact, I believe that he has to get a double-double in each of the remaining games in order for him to break the record, which is fairly unlikely, and that's just a shame about the 72-game season. Just a fun fact, though, that would, kind of push you towards betting on the Nikola Jokic double-double. So I know that was a longer show than it maybe should have been. There wasn't a whole lot to discuss. I talked a lot about the state of the Nuggets. I kind of rambled about this and that. I complained about Adam Silver, so it was a long show. Look on the Instagram for my quick hitters, which is purely betting analysis, not just talking about, narratives and the state of the Denver Nuggets. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell your friends about the show. See you next time.